WoW Killer is a production of amove.tv. Check out Amove TV for many more podcasts, multiple about Blizzard games. And for more of Taliesin's WoW coverage, check out Taliesin and Evitel on YouTube and twitch.tv. Welcome back, everybody, and Happy New Year. This is WoW Killer, the podcast that talks about sometimes only one World of Warcraft subject. I have a feeling we're going to bounce around a little bit today. I'm Garrett, here as always with Taliesin. How are you doing this fine 2021, Tally?
I'm Taliesin, and I'm here to kill WoW. Hope you don't like it, because it's dead now. I killed it. It's dead now.
We're just gonna do it. We're just gonna it's
just
dead.
Flat out, no mercy. Take it out the back.
World of Warcraft is going to its own Shadowlands. It's joining the Black Parade. It punched its last ticket. How many idioms would you like?
Join the Black Parade. I really hope that's. I really hope that's the way you refer to death in your everyday life. I was like, poor old granny. She joined the Black Parade.
I mean, as someone with a master's in hot topic history, yes, that is a way I refer
Massive
to death. Massive
commiserations for your loss. Our heart goes out to you. But think about it this way: he's joined the Black Parade now with WoW.
I've got this. I don't know why I have this, but I have a single piano note for you.
When I was a young... Yeah, good. Nice. Oh, look. We've killed WoW, and I think we just killed this show.
Yes, we did.
It's gone now. It's dead now. WoW wiped at 1%. We done. We done.
Good stuff.
It's going to be a classic. Honestly, this is our first podcast of the year 2021. That's the year for historians listening in. But actually, honestly, I think it's going to be the best one that we've done this year. Even though it's the only one we've done, I don't think it's going to be the best. I think it's going to be like one of our worst.
You are like a reverse hype man. I don't know how to respond to that.
It is the British way. It is the British way. Like, you know, like when you're growing up in Britain and you watch like American TV shows and stuff, and they're always like, "Hey man, you got to sell yourself. You got to big yourself up. You've always got to talk the talk. Always got to make those connections. Always be very confident in yourself." And as a British person, you're like, "What? No," because then people expect stuff of you. Nah. Always set that bar extremely low, my friends, and then it's very easy to clear. Then you'll always win.
You're like if A-Rock went rogue during a Beastie Boys song. It's just like, you gotta fight for your right to not get a noise complaint. That's what you're doing right now. It's wonderful.
You gotta ask politely for your right to party. Yeah, and if they say no,
you should
just
alert your
colonialize
neighbors
them.
politely before you have a party.
If they say no, just take them over, depose their government, put in your own government, teach them how to play cricket. Fair.
Well, Taliesin, we need to start today off with a correction because you and I, in what I believe was about a 2-hour episode, misspoke on a topic that had come up with no planning whatsoever and had naturally occurred in our course of conversation, which was the fate of the dead Rin family members and where they are located in the Shadowlands. Because
sure.
I think it was me who made a passing comment of, well, are they in the Maw? And we got so many tweets, comments, and emails correcting us that both Tiffin and Varian should have been properly sorted into their respective death realms.
I thought I said that in the show itself.
If you did, everyone missed it.
Angry emails from people like doing clip clap on their keyboards and not hearing me correct you. Yeah, no, I definitely said that.
Hold up.
But also, those people are making a big assumption that Tiffin Rin wouldn't have gone to the Maw anyway. We don't know much about Tiffin Rin. We know that she stood on a balcony laughing at starving tradespeople in Stormwind. Maybe she went to the Maw naturally. Maybe the Maw is exactly where she was supposed to be. Same with Varian Rin. What did he ever do? Abandon his child at a young age, became a gladiator, pit fighter, and then didn't allowed Garrosh to escape jail. I reckon he might have gone to the Maw. I think they could have gone to the Maw anyway. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I think you're making a big assumption, Taliesin, in that the corrections were angry.
look, I don't think he did. I don't know where he went. It's just what people are saying. People are saying that maybe Varian Rin went to the Maw. I've heard people say that. That's what people are saying. I don't know the truth of it, but that's what people are saying. People are saying Varian Rin went to the Maw. People are saying Tiffin Rin was already there. I don't know if it's true, Garrett. That's what people are saying. That's what I've heard. That's what everyone's saying. So don't blame me, but it's what people are saying. Now, I don't think that, but that's what people are saying. So, is that the end of the corrections? Is that the only thing we've ever got wrong?
That's it. Yeah, that's the thing. We got so many folks writing in.
That's what people chose to write in about. That's like out of all the shit we talk on this show. That was the thing.
Oh, I will not sit here. I will not sit here and let you tease all of the folks that wrote in, because I've never had more like kind and polite corrections. Like everyone was like, "Hey, interesting conversation." One thing, it was very kind, and like they just wanted to geek out and have a chat about WoW lore. It wasn't, "You freaking noob, what do you know?" None of that. Absolutely none of that. Everyone was just excruciatingly courteous, which is something I've just kind of noticed as a trend with World of Warcraft players that tend to write in, as opposed to over on the instance. Everyone hates me over there.
And rightfully so. You're terrible on that show, but you're quite nice on this one. So that encourages politeness, I guess. Thing I like about this show, Garrett, you know your place, and I appreciate that. Is WoW dead
Reverse
yet?
Hype Man continues.
This is hard. It's difficult in the new year, isn't it? I don't think 2021 is going to be as hard as 2020, but it is. It's really difficult. What's the topic of today's show, Garrett?
We're going to be taking your emails, everybody.
Oh, no, not one of those. Those are lame-o. Everyone's already switched off. Why did you say that? Why didn't you say we've got a number of different topics today, many of them inspired by suggestions from our listenership?
I appreciate your notes during the show. It's great. This is a cool way to do it. This is cool. I like it. We should bring in listeners in real time to correct us while we're recording. That'd be cool too.
Yeah, don't call it a mailbox episode. Everyone hates mailbox. Call it an interactive episode.
It is an interactive episode. Yeah. So if you'd like to write in, because you have a topic or a response or even a correction, you may do so at wowkillercast@gmail.com. Also pulled a couple of things off Twitter, which is @wowkillercast. And if we don't go 3 hours, we'll take some questions from Twitch.
Ooh. So, nice. I wouldn't. It's touch and go with those guys. It's touch and go with the Twitch guys. I'd be very careful. They're good for just stealing jokes off when they write them in chat at the exact right moment. But questions, I don't know. We'll see.
I really like them so that they can Google while I keep conversation and talkie bets going.
Yeah, like having fact checkers in real time. What could possibly go wrong?
Anyway, starting us off is Larian wrote in and said, to my understanding, Nathanos Blightcaller, when he was alive, wasn't exactly well known outside of the Farstriders. He became better known to most after he was raised as Forsaken. Even then, what we see is the better preserved body of his cousin Stefan. Do you think that Sylvanas will use this to her advantage, since few of the players know what Nathanos looked like when he was just a plain old human? And to the fine folks listening at home, if you are unfamiliar with this lore tidbit, it comes from a short story written by Steve Denuser himself called Dark Mirror, available over on the World of Warcraft website right now, where it kind of tells the story of why Nathanos looks the way he does. But yeah, that ain't his body. Sylvanas transplanted it into the much more well-preserved body of his cousin.
And it is his cousin, is it? Someone's saying nephew in the chat, but I don't know if it's... Either way, a close relative. Which is very interesting. And I do know that, obviously. I did know that it wasn't his body, but it's one of those things I always forget.
Quote from Nathanos in that short story. I present my cousin, Stefan Maris.
Oh, right.
He's only a boy of 9, but as you can plainly see, his lack of manners already rivals mine. This is a flashback.
Right, yeah, that's not okay. Good.
Boy, that's
wow.
That 9-year-old hit puberty early.
Yeah. I mean, A, that must be quite weird for Nathanos. B, I mean, here's the thing, right? Okay, now you can see what's before we actually address the question. Let's address the situation here. That yes, Nathanos was in his cousin's body for the whole time that we've been kind of following his story closely. Really, Legion onwards, he's always been a very kind of background character. Otherwise, and I can see the appeal for Nathanos to be in his cousin's body. I can see the appeal for Sylvanas for Nathanos being in his cousin's body. But also, I don't know, man. If I died and, like, I needed a new body and the woman I loved was like, hey, yeah, your cousin. Why don't you go in your cousin's body? Why don't you become them? I'd be like, I don't know, man. I'd rather it was someone not related to me. It's a bit weird if I died and I needed a new body and everyone was like, yeah, and people who, and Evitel was like, yeah, you should definitely use your brother's body. I think that's great for everyone. I'd be like, whoa, would you still want to like do the sexy time with me if I was in my brother's body? And she'd be like, hell yeah, yeah, totally. I don't know. I just don't know how I'd feel about it.
Kind of awkward and weird.
Very awkward and weird.
So yeah, in that flashback,
I kind of preferred it was someone completely foreign and not connected to me at all in that respect.
I think either way, I would be wholly uncomfortable. It's just like, hey, not only would I like you to, look a little bit better, I think I'd like also a younger vessel. How's that sound?
Yeah, totally. The one who was 9 when I met them. Yeah, totally.
How Star Wars prequel of
well
her.
Then, okay, but for elves and humans, I guess that's like a regular thing, right? They're quite used to kind of seeing humans go through lots of different kind of age brackets while they stay pretty much the same because they've got much better, much longer lifespans and things. So I guess it wouldn't be the same issue for an elf as it would be for a human.
So we kind of have we're dealing with like a creepy spin on an Aragorn Arwen situation.
Yeah, a creepy spin on that very uncreepy thing. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess that's also creepy, but this is literally dealing with dead people.
But it's always it makes me think of like when people when meat eater. I'm a meat eater, and I kind of wish I wasn't in a way, but I'm weak and I love it. And
I can't stop.
When meat eaters is like, yeah, like it's okay to eat meat as long as you respect the animal, okay? And that means using up every part of the animal. Don't let any go to waste. So we got to eat that face, we got to eat the tongue, we got to eat all the innards and everything because that's showing respect to the animal. And I'm like, I'm not sure I agree with your logic. If someone was going to, eat you, Garrett, and they were like, don't worry, we're going to eat Garrett, but we're going to show respect to him. We're going to eat his face. And I'd be like, I think it might be more respectful not to eat his face. Like, eat the rump, fine. Eat the fleshy thighs, eat the massive willy, fine, whatever. But I may be more respectful not to eat the tongue or the face. I don't know. And like, isn't it funny how we consider like when you're eating animals, eating the face to be respectful, but I wouldn't consider it respectful for a human being. I'd find it very disrespectful. This isn't quite as great an example as I thought it was going to be, but
no, it really has gone off the rails. I'm going to save it by saying though, I would prefer you leave me alone in case I'm raised by the Dark Lady.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's the thing, like, so if someone was like, look, we had to eat Garrett, but we're going to show respect and make sure we eat all of Garrett, I'd be like, I'd rather you didn't eat all Garrett. I'd like you to leave some of the more human-looking bits. I think that would be more respectful. Whereas with a cow, it's like, you got to eat the tongue, otherwise it's not respectful. Okay. And I just feel like that with this whole kind of Sylvanas and Nathanos situation. Let me really kind of dig upwards here. I feel this way about the Nathanos and Sylvanas situation. It's like, oh, look, Nathanos needs a new body, but hey, isn't this good? Let's put him in his cousin's body because that is, it's keeping like some kind of consistency and a through line. But, we all know that Nathanos and Sylvanas have done the sexy time, okay? So suddenly, not only is Sylvanas having sex with her boyfriend, sexy time, it's less threatening, with her boyfriend's cousin now, but also Nathanos is having sexy time as his cousin, and I don't know, I just don't like it. I just don't like it.
I believe that is the intended reaction. I think this is supposed to be off-putting and call into question a lot of things about Sylvanas' imposing her will upon others, which is a big theme of Sylvanas' kind of arc the last 3 expansions, and really coming to a head here in Shadowlands. And so this is just one more example of her taking choice out of the equation for other people.
Yeah. And if there's one thing you take from this conversation, Garrett, I want it to be that if I had to eat you, I wouldn't eat your face and I wouldn't touch your hair. Rest assured.
Thank you so very. I mean, it's going to fall out anyway, so do what you want with it.
No, it keeps growing even when you're dead. I know that's a myth, but and your fingernails. I wouldn't eat your fingernails either. I don't care how respectful that would be. I won't do it.
It'll be like that final scene in Last Crusade.
Yeah.
I am still pulling myself together.
Absolutely. Just like that.
Was amazing, by the way, podcast listeners, during this entire eating of Garrett conversation. Some of the things that were yelled in there broke me. I had to ride my mute button. It was fantastic. But yeah. So my question to you, based off of what Larian tees up here, and I know we're like, do you think Sylvanas will use this to her advantage? Some things have come to light where it doesn't seem like Sylvanas has Nathanos to leverage, is kind of where my brain sits right now.
Ooh,
so I would
I would
repackage this.
I'm genuinely think I might have missed this. What please explain this.
You did entire. Oh, okay. All right. So this is spoiler territory for cinematics that are not yet viewable in game.
Yeah.
You just did a whole damn video about that.
I literally did a 40-minute cinematic analysis of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
I minimize it and listen to it like a podcast while I was doing
loads of things I forgot to mention in that video, by the way.
What do you think? 10 minutes? You think we could wrap this conversation up in 10 minutes?
I seriously doubt it, Garrett. Have you seen this show? What kind of a question is that?
10 to 15 minute spoiler warning. There's
spoiler warning. I see. Yeah, guys.
2 major. Yeah, really, I think we just operate on, if you watch Taliesin's videos, you'll be comfortable with this podcast in general. That's kind of...
Yeah, because if you watch my videos, we know your standards are very low.
I was talking about spoiler comfort level.
Oh, I see. I understand now. Yeah. Good, excellent, good, glad, happy.
I'm not linking the quality of what I make to what you make. That was not my intent. That was not my intent.
No, I don't blame you.
So, are they in game now? Did I miss something this week?
They're in game with the twisting corridors, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Most people are going to have to work quite hard to see the
I was about to say, yeah, I definitely died in Twisting Corridors.
Oh, I'm glad we're doing this episode. I'm glad we don't have to talk about the Twisting Corridors today. I'm not up for it. My heart's not in it. I can't talk about the Twisting Corridors today. I'm so glad we're not having to do that. Forget I ever mentioned it. I don't know even why you mentioned it. Why did you even mention it?
I've got a real fun story about me being dumb in the Twisting Corridors. Remind me to share it at some point.
No, I insist you share it. No, I'm really sorry. We have to set aside... when I became a man, I set aside childish things. And I'm setting aside this Nathanos question right now because I need to hear your dumb story about you being dumb. I can't... Well, I won't be able to concentrate on the rest of the show unless you tell me the dumb story about you being dumb. Sorry.
All right, everybody, gather around. Story time with Garrett. Grab a coffee, a hot chocolate, an eggnog, whatever it is you're enjoying. Yeah, wonderful. I didn't read the quest text. I didn't read where I was going. I didn't read the name of the corridor I was about to step into, Taliesin. I just went to Bolvar and was like, yo, give me your quest to send me to a way too easy wing of Torghast to get a clue as to where Anduin is, but there's no way I'm going to save him this week because this is how it has all gone. And so I just forged ahead and I tried to speed run because I thought it was just another 6th floor go save the hero, except we're not saving the hero because you can't save the hero right away. You got to spend a week finding a clue first. And then when floor 7 happened, I went, oh, I've made a horrible mistake because I didn't kill everything and save all the souls that I could save and get all of the Anima powers that I could have. And it went fine until I got to floor 12 where I died to the boss.
I've come into Torghast by mistake.
Yeah. It was just like, oh, I've done this. I'm so done with this. I'm well geared. I'm bored with these go save the hero quests. It's an easy layer of Torghast anyway. I'm just gonna speed run it. And then floor 7 happened, and I went, oh shit, I made a horrible mistake.
Yikes.
Yeah. So there is that. Okay. So back to Larian, talking about Nathanos and if he's even going to be leveraged by Sylvanas in Shadowlands. There's 2 big cinematics apparently now accessible in game, but unlikely the vast majority of players have actually seen them, so this would be considered spoiler territory, so skip ahead if you're uncomfortable with this. But Anduin is the weapon they're honing, essentially. We see Anduin imprisoned in Torghast. Sylvanas is trying to coerce him over to her side and the side of the jailer, but what I'm more interested in is the follow-up cinematic where the jailer is essentially impatient with Sylvanas' attempts to basically get Anduin to opt in to their offerings and tells her to just go and force him to serve, essentially. And there's a line where Sylvanas stops short, Taliesin. She gets a little personal. She breaks. We see a crack in Sylvanas's, wonderful villainous facade.
Can you do an impression of the line, Garrett? Can you give us a
I don't have the direct quote in front of me, so I'm sure I'm going to misquote it, but it was something to the effect of she's talking about how all of the decisions have been made for her, yada yada yada, and it's talking about. She basically says something to the effect of, we can't even choose who we ...
Bone.
And sorry, what was that?
Bone.
We can't even choose who we... She clearly she had a lot of choice in who she bones. Nathanos not so much.
It's a fair point. She gets her pick.
And yeah, Nathanos couldn't choose who he got. Which body he got the pilot in said boning. That's what Nathanos didn't
I
get
see.
to choose. Yeah. If bodies are like Gundams for sex, Nathanos didn't get to choose his mobile suit. Hope you all enjoyed.
This is a sexy episode, isn't it? This episode is all about
well,
the
if
sex.
we're talking about Sylvanas and Nathanos, yes. Yeah. Welcome to the.
It's interesting, Eric, because you're right. It's worth just pointing out before we get angry emails that the actual line you're talking about comes from the first of those cinematics, where she's first trying to convince Anduin. And
is it?
Yeah, and Anduin says, well, how do you know you're not just a tool for the jailer? And she's all like, get out of it. And then the jailer in the second cinematic is all like, yeah, I spent the last 2 days making a 40-minute cinematic analysis on it. So and it's interesting. You said that the jailer loses patience. I'd say that's an exaggeration as well. It's almost like the jailer carries on with his plan regardless. As soon as the Morn Blade, which I won't spoil anymore, is ready to compel Anduin, literally the second that is done, he tells Sylvanas to use it on Anduin. So it's not even like he put his plan back by a single minute to allow Sylvanas to try and win Anduin over. It was like, yeah, you can do it in the meantime while I make the blade to forcibly compel him if you want. Because it doesn't make any difference to my plans. I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. So yeah. But it's true. So you think the line that she was going to say, where we don't even get to choose who we spend our time with or love or be with, or is that what
something
you think?
Of that nature?
Do the sexy time with?
I think she was essentially going to reveal that you don't get to stay with the people you love in death. something to that effect. I don't know how they would have written the line. I would have gone with like, we don't even get to choose who we be with. Because it to me seems very telling we haven't seen Nathanos yet. We had two full expansions of those two, not being inseparable because we barely saw Sylvanas and BFA. It was a whole lot of Nathanos and a whole little of Sylvanas, but the two are very connected, and it just seems so strange that in an expansion that was set into motion entirely by the actions of Sylvanas that we haven't even seen Nathanos. And I think Larian is hitting on something here. I don't necessarily think that Nathanos is some part of Sylvanas' scheme. I think she didn't have a choice in how much time she gets to spend with him in death.
Sure. So you don't. I mean, let's go back a bit. When Nathanos has his kind of death cinematic at the beginning of Shadowlands with Tyrande, which I guess you can't see anymore. But he is like, well, yeah, sure, go ahead. That's a good point. And you're sending me straight back to my lady, he says. Now, whether that's kind of like goading or whatever, it does sort of imply that him getting killed is part of the plan, because it's basically just a shortcut for him to go back to the Maw and join up with the rest of the gang, right? The rest of the jailer gang.
It would be rather perfect, though. Like, Nathanos is such a deeply tragic character. It would just be the cherry on top of his tragic Sunday that he is happy to die and to go be with his lady and is robbed of that.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to see how he would be, because, like, if he has a soul to go anywhere, which he does, it's going to go to the Maw currently, because, like, all souls are. So unless Sylvanas just can't be bothered finding him or sifting him out or anything like that, which I don't know.
Well, these new cinematics seem to imply that the jailer is pulling all of the strings and doesn't seem to really care what Sylvanas wants.
That's definitely true. I mean,
Sylvanas seems a means to his end, and what better way to, pull her strings than to keep Nathanos tucked away?
Sure. And I mean, that you're right. That kind of, I remember Ian Hazzikostas talking about Sylvanas, and when he was asked directly, like, whether she was going to be Garrosh or whatever, and he was like, Sylvanas doesn't serve anyone, like, Sylvanas does her own thing, and, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, these cinematics work very hard to show you that Sylvanas absolutely is a servant of the jailer. Like, the way the scene composition and camera angles and everything that show this very impersonal relationship between them, where she is absolutely an underling of the jailer right now. Like, in that last cinematic you're talking about, she's literally working as a messenger to him. She comes in to inform him about Denathrius and stuff like that. And obviously she's more important than that, but it's very deliberate the way they show us that, and the way that they frame those scenes, with the jailer kind of like towering over her. They put the camera below them and stuff like that. And absolutely. And then the scene between Anduin and her being very much more personal and very specifically at a more kind of personal sort of level and camera height and things like that. And that's really, really interesting. And backs up what you're saying about how, like, Nathanos could absolutely be in the Maw, but, there's no way Sylvanas can really find him, because it would be up to the jailer just to pull him out of the ether or whatever, or the kind of deluge of souls that are heading to the Maw every day, and he just can't be tossed, because why would he? He doesn't care. He doesn't care about Nathanos or the jailer or Sylvanas or anything like that. He's got his own plan, which he's forging ahead with. It's almost like he's almost got everything out of Sylvanas that he really needed and wanted. In the same way that he says, Denathrius has served his purpose. Well, what was Sylvanas' purpose? Like, she has soloed Bolvar and disenchanted the Helm of Domination. You have to imagine that was kind of her purpose, right? So, as far as the jailer's concerned, what more does he need her for? Like, she's a very powerful ally to have in the Maw, for sure. But yeah, it's kind of like that thing of Denathrius, where it's like, well, I mean, whatever happens now, and if you can stick around and help me, then great, but I don't need you anymore. And that's definitely a feeling I get from the relationship between Sylvanas and the jailer, despite how much she seems to agree with his cause and his and his stated intention, his stated objective. So yeah, like you have to think Sylvanas has certainly done the important thing that the jailer would have wanted her to do at this point, I'd have thought. Maybe she's not that important, and maybe that will be something that maybe Nathanos will help her in that respect. Maybe Nathanos will find her and help her. Who knows? But I do really like the idea that is suggested in the message of we don't know what Nathanos actually looks like. There's an implication in Shadowlands that to a certain degree you can take what form you like anyway, depending on what covenant you're in, and that would be interesting if someone that we were working with, and we actually discussed this in the build up to Shadowlands as well, what a great kind of narrative twist that could be if you were working with someone who was like an unknown ally, someone you've just befriended in a zone. And then it turns out that they are some baddie from like Azeroth or something, and they've been playing you because you just don't know what they look like, and they now look completely differently, and that's absolutely something that you could play with Nathanos. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And we haven't seen any of Nathanos since we've been to Shadowlands, which isn't a great surprise because we've seen plenty of him in the last couple of expansions, frankly. So just from a narrative point of view, it's not surprising to me that we haven't seen him. But from a kind of stuff that happens in the Shadowlands point of view, it would have made perfect sense to see him like join up with the gang and the team. And so I don't know.
It's interesting. It certainly seems like the story is heading towards, like, Sylvanas seems to be realizing the things that I think we as players are realizing, like things I've been yelling about. Like, why is she as evil and cruel as she is? She's kind of just becoming what she hates. She's just becoming another Arthas. Why is she serving the jailer? How is it any different than serving Arthas? And it seems like Sylvanas is finally starting to notice these things. It seems to be a big part of these new cinematics that we're seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it just took a little while to get there. Took 3 expansions, really to get there.
Well, she has to do the bad stuff to realize that she's doing bad stuff, right? And like, I know we feel differently about this, but I think Sylvanas' journey since Cataclysm, which is when Sylvanas has started getting interesting for me, has been like remarkably well kind of plotted, and particularly in the last 3 expansions. I've totally seen how she has kind of indulged in, and now we know that it's 'cause she found a cause to believe in, and jumped with both feet into being an antagonist for us on Azeroth and our kind of objectives and things like that. And it's really interesting to see her now get to a point where, yeah, she's starting to realize what she's become and who she's teamed up with, or apparently on the face of it. Because you never know with Sylvanas and with the WoW dev team, to be honest, what they're going to do to kind of undermine it or make it not make any sense anymore. But at the moment, it certainly looks like she is getting to a point where she's starting to realize, yeah, who she's thrown her lot in with and her role in that, and the fact that she might have, the jailer might not have been totally straight with her all the way through, and that, a real kind of, oh, I am the baddie moment. And, I didn't mind being a baddie before when it was kind of stuff I believed in, but now it's not even that. And yeah, you might well say, well, we all knew that an expansion and a half ago. Why did it take her so long? And it takes the person involved always a bit longer than people on the outside to notice, right? I think that's fair. And it's these last couple of cinematics have been really interesting to see her journey, and that moment where she, this is still spoiler territory, by the way, about this new cinematic, that moment where she points Charlemagne or Shalamorn Anduin's sword, Varian's sword. The sword, don't forget, because I forgot in my cinematic analysis, the sword, don't forget, that gave her the scar on her eye, because it's the sword that Saurfang was using in their Mok'Gara. Like, when she points the newly frostmourned Charlemagne at Anduin in the very, very, like, on-the-nose recreation of the famous Wrath of the Lich King pose, you know, the famous...
I don't know what you're talking about.
But an absolute moment of, you know, and she's about to use that blade to compel him against his will, as she was as well. And that moment of very explicitly becoming kind of everything that you stand against sort of thing. And some might argue, yeah, she's already done that in BFA, but like that explicitly, and you know, having established in the last since Shadowlands began that she does have a modicum of respect for Anduin. Like, she wants him on side. You know, it's clearly her that has convinced the jailer to get Anduin on side. You know, it's like, this guy's powerful. Like, we need him on our team, and it's interesting that she feels that way about him, and that, like, she's investing so much into breaking him because of what it means for her own actions and how it would justify her own joining with the jailer and stuff like that. And I find that, like, I just find that really good character writing. Sorry, I think it's really good. I find it incredibly interesting, and it's really fun to watch her go on this journey. And I feel like she needed to go full on baddie in BFA for that to really work. And I'm just really enjoying the whole Sylvanas ride at the moment. And, you know, the question that we started all of this talking about was, could it turn out that Sylvanas will use Nathanos and us not recognizing him because he's not, you know, we know him in a different body to what presumably his soul looks like or whatever. That's possible, but I also like the idea that Nathanos could help Sylvanas in the same way. You know, Sylvanas doesn't recognize Nathanos. Because he looks different in the Shadowlands, like he's some kind of shade or spirit or something that just looks like anything else in the Maw, you know. And it turns out that he's kind of keeping a watchful eye on her, and appears at a moment to kind of help her out maybe, and kind of rescue her from the jailer or something like that. I think that's just as feasible and just as interesting from a story point of view. I think it's great.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have to make a new model.
Yeah.
He just appears as some sort of shade or spirit.
Yeah. Wouldn't have to animate that long coat anymore. They'd love it.
Well, you know, maybe his original body doesn't prefer the long coats.
Well, exactly.
Maybe Stefan just had the figure to pull off the long coat. But
always thought he was a bit chunky for long coats, actually. But, you know, I know that feeling. I was always that long coat's not really doing it for you, Nathanos. I just...
just kind of the human physique, right? Now you're going to get me off on the tangent of I don't like how absolutely ripped my male human warlock is. I feel like he'd be a little more gangly. That dude looks like he does CrossFit.
Yeah. 5
days a week.
One day we'll get those skinny Kultiran male models, Garrett, and then all will be well.
Yeah. Yeah. I too, I'm rather enjoying the Sylvanas ride at this point.
Oh no! Does that mean we have to cancel our Sylvanas episode that we never made?
We're never gonna. You get a light dusting of it almost every episode.
I guess we'll. Yeah, I mean that's true actually, and I guess maybe probably the real time to do the Sylvanas episode will be the end of Shadowlands when we get some kind of resolution.
I think because we did a BFA postmortem, and I'm sure we'll eventually do a Shadowlands postmortem, and I sure bet that will also sort of be a Sylvanas postmortem.
Yeah,
whether
think so
she
too.
Actually second dies or not. I think that's what it's going to end up being.
I think we're going to get some kind of Sylvanas resolution at the end of this expansion. Yeah, for sure. And I look forward to seeing what that is.
I think like pseudo finality, right? Because nothing's really final in something as ridiculous and pulpy and ongoing as World of Warcraft, especially as this expansion has shown. But yeah, I think we're going to get a closing, like a closing of the book on Sylvanas for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
You mean fourth? Says chat room, fourth death. Is that like second breakfast?
Oh, don't! You've made me hungry again. Kebab time.
Sorry. You gotta pre-show everybody if you're wondering what the hell we're talking about. Anyways, thank you for your email there, Larian. Velkaya wrote in and said it seems somewhat likely that our player characters' quote-unquote specialness, i.e. our affinity to the Waystone and our ability to make the Arbiter twitch randomly, has to do with something. Velkaya puts forward possibly something to do with the Heart of Azeroth, or our messing with Azeroth in the previous expansion. Velkaya continues, but right now, if I had a hunch, it would be that the Arbiter's lights went out when Azeroth got stabbed, which implies that Azeroth as a world soul has importance to how death functions for all realms, furthering the idea that she's special for some reason. No idea if any of that is right. Probably missing a lot on the lore side of things. Have you had much of a think on why the Arbiter is in this state of stasis, essentially?
Yes. And I feel like, okay, so, if you haven't seen it, when you start Shadowlands and you go to Oribos, it shows you a cinematic of the Arbiter doing all the Arbiter stuff, and then suddenly this big red bolt comes out of the sky and zaps the Arbiter, and that's when she breaks down and stops working, and that's when they are able to redirect all the souls to the Maw. So there's been much speculation about what that red bolt is. Let's address that first of all. Obviously it could be anything. It's a story, so, the writers are able to make it whatever they want. It could be literally anything, and whatever suits them is what it's going to be. So it's pointless saying it is definitely this or that. The only thing you can do is what it is most likely. And there's been lots of speculation about maybe it was when Azeroth was stabbed. Let's look at that as a statement, and let's kind of weigh it up in a lore way. Azeroth is a Titan world soul. We know that Titans don't go to the Shadowlands when they die, and as such don't have much of a connection to the Shadowlands. It's fair to assume. We know that just from what Steve News has said. He said he's explicitly said that, like demons and like void beings, they go somewhere else when they die. Shadowlands is specifically connected to the mortal realm of our universe and of Azeroth, and it's where mortals go, and lower as well, but they go there for a slightly different reason, like wild gods and things. Titans go somewhere else completely. Void gods go somewhere else completely. It's fair to assume that therefore Naru and what have you go somewhere else completely. Demons totally go somewhere else completely. So there's all these different kind of realities, and they're separate from the Shadowlands. So the question therefore would be, why would Azeroth getting stabbed have any kind of resonance or impact in the Shadowlands at all? You could maybe say, well, maybe the Arbiter has a Titan connection. There certainly seems to be some shared lineage between the Eternal Ones and maybe Titan-ish kind of being somewhere. We don't know, though. It's kind of just speculation. And as far as I really kind of feel it, there's not really much reason for Azeroth getting stabbed to have had any effect on the Arbiter. Likewise, people have kind of, just because of the colour of the bolt, it's a kind of a red, and Argus was a bit red when he died in the fight on Mythic. There's that saying like, oh, well, it looks like it could be Argus, and maybe when we killed Argus, that kind of, they called him the Titan of Death. They actually called him a Death Titan, which is just a cool name. It's like that. It's like that sketch from the Mitchell and Webb show where a professor called Dr. Death is making things for the US government, and the US government comes along and they're like, "Show us what you've made, Dr. Death." And he goes, "I've made the Death Ray." And they're like, "Oh, amazing, brilliant! It's a. Can we use it to kill people?" He's like, "No, it's for cooking." It's like, "Well, why is it called a Death Ray?" It's because my name is Dr. Death. I've named it after myself. What's this? It's a death machine. Oh, amazing. We'll have 100 made and we'll put them in the army. Why do you want them in the army? It's a death machine. It's for doing something completely different. I just named it. My name's Dr. Death. Come on. And I kind of feel like that when people talk about Argus as being the Titan of Death. It's like, they just called him a Death Titan because it's cool, okay? Because he wants to kill shit. So yeah, and there's been speculation that the Red Bolt is, pardon me, is something to do with Argus as well. But again, there's nothing to really suggest that. It's cool. I mean, I'm not saying it's not. It could easily be. All it takes is for Steve News to turn around and go, Yeah, it's Argus, and that's all the justification you need. But I mean, at the moment,
I hope that's actually how it happens. I hope they're having like a story group table session where they're trying to decide where the story goes. Chief Newser just goes, he looks at the clock, it's 5:01. He just goes, "It's Argus. We're done." And whoop, whatever the sound of logging off of Zoom. That's how it went down.
Absolutely, and like dude, exactly.
I mean,
and everyone else around the table is like, Steve, that doesn't really make any sense. And Steve just goes, good point. Let me just ask you this though. Hands up if your name is Steve Denusa. Can't help none of you are putting your hands up. My hand's up, so I guess I win.
There it is. We're done. We're done here. Goodbye.
So yeah, why not? It could be Argus. Of
World
course,
Warcraft.
you know. Yeah, why not? It could be Argus. Great. It could all been part of the plan. It's far more likely, in my opinion, that it is the result of something that the jailer did. And
I think it's the result of I look at it and like I look at the Arbiter, I look at the jailer, and I go, something is missing on the jailer that is not missing on the Arbiter, and it's something floating in your giant chest hole. And I just have a feeling that those are somehow linked, that whatever those things are, they haven't been explained yet as far as I know, unless they've been data mined or something. Yeah. That I think the lack of that object in the jailer probably has something to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it just makes more sense that it's the jailer. And when I say the jailer, I mean, that could mean it was Denathrius doing something. That could mean it was Helya doing something, or Sylvanas doing something. When I say it was the jailer, I mean it was the jailer or someone enacting his plan, you know? So like him or his team, his gang, you know? When I say the jailer, it doesn't have to have literally been the jailer physically firing the bolt. It could have been Helya doing it or something, but that's the same as saying the jailer. Like if they're doing it for the jailer.
Denathrius when he was...
And like,
that
just makes more sense. It makes more sense narratively. It makes more sense for the story that we're in right now and the story that's being told. It's just more satisfying as a story as well for those reasons, in my opinion. But I mean, like, it could be anything. I'm inclined to believe it's more closely linked to the jailer than it's when the sword went in the planet or something like that. Just because of where we are in the story, you know. It just seems to make more sense. Denathrius likes red stuff. The bolt's red. I mean, why not?
So is that vortex into the Maw. Although I guess when we see that, it is in Revendreth, and it's like ripping that Revendreth Anima towards it, so that would be reds. But yeah, I still think of the Maw as like this red and black swirl. So,
but that doesn't answer the other part of the question, which is what explains the player character's deep connection to the first one artifacts, and why are they able to be a Maw-walker and no one else is? Why is it the player character that is the Maw-walker? What explains that connection? Because that's the other part of that question.
Lore reason, I have no idea. Actual reason, because it'd be a boring ass game if we spent the entire expansion in the Maw. I don't know. I can't. I don't think it's the Heart of Azeroth because we're not using it anymore.
Sure. Well, and actually, that's a really good point. Actually, going back to the question, like, could it have been when the sword went into Azeroth that caused the Arbiter to go lights out because they have some kind of connection? If there was any connection between Azeroth and the Shadowlands in that way, as in the world soul of Azeroth and the Shadowlands, you'd expect us to be able to use the Heart of Azeroth in the Shadowlands, wouldn't you? But we can't. Maybe that's because the Arbiter's out of action. I don't think it is. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I say, it could be anything. And me kind of giving my opinion on, like, dismissing the idea that it's when the sword went in or when Argus died, or Xavius is another one that I've heard. We're just like listing red things basically. But I mean, that's not me saying it's definitely not, and then you're an idiot if you think it is, and that you're wrong, and you should take a good look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself some serious questions about you and your WoW lore knowledge. I'm not saying that at all, because it could easily be any of those things. I'm just kind of saying, you know, in my opinion, it just seems more likely that it's the antagonists of this story that we're in right now who, you know, have... their whole plan is to take out the Arbiter and send all the souls to the Maw. It seems likely it would be them that did the thing.
Yeah, especially for something like such a major story beat.
Yeah,
in this
exactly.
Expansion, right? Like it's one thing to have deep cuts that stretch back multiple expansions in your weekly Covenant quests. Like I ran into someone from War of the Ancients as a Night Fae this week. Like that's cool because it's this little side quest. It's very contained, and that's where you can kind of play with that. But for your big at the end of this, when we explain what happened in Shadowlands in like a paragraph, they tend to not go that deep into. No, it ties into those red orcs you killed in Hellfire Peninsula and Burning Crusade. Like
more red things I forgot about. Thank you. I forgot about those red things.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't mentioned the Kool-Aid Man either. I don't know if you want to get him in there. But
well, and also for it to be any of those things takes a massive amount of agency away from your main baddie in the expansion, right? Like if it was Argus or if it was the sword going into Azeroth, suddenly the jailer is a whole lot less scary because suddenly the jailer becomes like this hyena or vulture or something that's just taking advantage of a situation rather than a big baddie who made stuff happen. And I feel like the jailer is very much a baddie that has made stuff happen. He has got fingers in pies. It looks like he made the Lich King happen. He made Sylvanas happen. He has made a lot of stuff happen. And to rob him of being the one that took the Arbiter out is robbing him of quite an important bit of agency from the proceedings of this expansion. And I think Blizz would want him to have that agency. So that's my main thinking, really. I'm being a bit of a wanker and I'm trying to think of it like a writer. And I would definitely make it the jailer.
As would I.
Yeah.
as would I. That's kind of what I want to see it. The jailer's interesting. We haven't seen a ton of him. He hasn't been.
And yet we've seen so much of him.
I mean, he really does need to put a shirt on.
So fleshy, so much flesh.
So flesh. I've given some hard times to the jailer's design. Like it's not my favorite thing in the world. But damn, because we got so many. We got a little cinematic with him last week, and we got some legit in-game cinematics with him this week. The way they animate him, just the slow walk because he's so big, they nailed it. It works. It works in game really well, even if it's not my favorite, costume character design in the history of World of Warcraft. He's just so imposing, and I think in a certain way, he's maybe not my favorite because he's pretty different from your standard Warcraft aesthetic, but it also works. He's just otherworldly and creepy.
I like it. They were like, look, just get a guy, make him shirtless, give him spiky bits, cover him in prison tattoos, which are also the runes from Frostmourne. That's just great. I just really respect that.
I like to think that they just really like that one scene with Kylo Ren in Last Jedi. They're just like, oh man, when he's just standing there shirtless.
He's not wide enough.
That be our villain. Well, they tried. They broadened him out, and they're like, no, that doesn't work. Make him taller, and that's how we ended up with Giant Jailer.
I've been on the internet for a long time now, and I think shirtless Kylo Ren memes are still my favorite memes ever created.
I'm a prequel fan, or a prequel meme, garbage, just trash. I love it. I'm all about it. Just dive in. But,
I'm pretty sure, right, that it's because of the rich vein of prequel memes that people think the prequels are good now.
Oh, 100%. 100%. They've really endeared.
Yeah.
We should table that for a pre-show talk.
Oh, good work. Oh my goodness, you're getting better at this. My attempt to completely derail this conversation, it fell on deaf ears for a change.
Oh yeah.
You're so professional. This is so great. Oh.
So, anyways, let's switch gears. Let's stop talking lore for a second. Let's talk about playing the game, because Kefe writes in and says, "Hi, folks. I've been playing since vanilla and generally enjoy grinding out alts. Something is different for me, though, in Shadowlands. I log onto an alt, look at the tests available, do the bare minimum for callings and renown storyline, and then I log off. This is usually end of XPAC behavior for me. I just want to tease right now and go, wow, you were getting renown in old expansions? That's amazing. I don't know what you were doing, Kevin.
Oh, you facetious bastard.
Yes.
You're such a dick. You're like Bean Dad. You're like, oh god.
Get off. I'm gonna kick you off.
Oh, you're Bean Dad Garrett. Oh, you were getting renown in other expansions.
I'm not gonna.
Where is the mechanism? Where is the can? Where is the renown in your other expansions?
I am only mad about this for the purely selfish reason of I do not want my brother and me's intro music to change. That's it. That's the only reason. I don't like change, and I've been listening to that podcast for like half a decade. That's it. That's truly the only reason I'm mad. Because that's the only way it impacts me personally. Cafe says continues saying something's off. I'm not sure if it's the lack of a flight whistle, the long travel time between zones, the same faction competition within many world quests for spawn items, or the low Anima rewards versus high costs of everything. You're pandering to me, Cafe, and it's working. I put it on the show. It could be a combo of all of these things. I want to grind out Sanctum upgrades, cosmetics, mounts, and Sanctum gear. Just something feels unsatisfying about the cost and time versus reward in Anima. Maybe it's as simple as putting a chunky Anima reward in Callings. Maybe Blizzard could stop doubling down on the travel tax. What do you think? Thanks for taking the time to read this, Garrett. And if it makes it onto the show, thanks for listening, Tally. From Cafe, occasionally in chat. P.S. The Maw can suck it. Yes, I have a mount. It can still suck it. P.P.S. Torghast is still fun, though.
I feel like you're going to agree with the sentiment of this question more than me, so I think you should answer it first.
The thing is that I see Cafe's first paragraph as a major positive, because I agree with the second paragraph that calls out the lack of flight whistle, the long travel times, all that kind of stuff. I do think those are challenges laid before Altaholics. But I think the fact that you can just log in and do your Covenant quest line without having to engage with any of that is really alt positive.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with you. I'd say that I think the question here is touching on something very interesting, in that the catch up and to stay kind of relevant on a character in an alt is very front loaded, in that, you know, it's very easy to achieve it very, very quickly. And there's a very steep level of diminishing returns, which is designed for main character play, I think, you know, which is where, like, if you've got the time that you want to put into a character, then you can kind of grind the Anima for the cosmetics and things like that. And so here's the thing, even just playing alts in the minimal way that you're describing, you're going to get all of those cosmetics. You're going to get all the transmogs. You're going to get all the renown. You're going to get all of the mounts and things like that that you would save up for. You're going to get all of the Covenant upgrades. You're just not going to get it in, like, you know, super quick time. Whereas it is possible to do that a lot quicker on a main if you're willing to cope with those diminishing returns. And it's those diminishing returns that are incredibly unsatisfying when it comes to alts. But that's okay, because unlike in BFA, the important stuff is all very front-loaded. And so just to keep up with a character and to keep it ticking over and to keep it so that it's not a big catch-up when you do eventually decide to focus on it a bit, is that bare minimum of stuff that you're talking about. And yeah, anything beyond that, if you're doing it on multiple characters, is going to feel maybe a bit frustrating and less rewarding. But I think for me, and I can only speak for myself, and this is purely subjective, but I feel like that's a good way round, and I think that's a good balance, and that feels excellent to me, and it's one of the things I really like. We talked about this like last episode. I love the slow pace of leveling and the meaningful pace of gearing, in Shadowlands, and the meaningful pace of gearing. I like that world quests are a bit more engaging and in depth and involved, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I totally agree. It's insane to me that there isn't Anima in cooling chests. I don't understand why that's the case at all. They should, like, those things should be bursting with Anima. I should open those things and get Anima splattered on my face, and there's none of it. Nada. No Anima in those chests. They can suck me. They can get right out. And like, those chests in general, worst thing about the entire expansion. But yeah, there definitely needs to be Anima in those. I agree with that. But otherwise, I like the fact that there is a fall off in terms of the rewards, and there is this very steep diminishing returns, which, you know, gives me that thing. I do play alts, but I don't play as many as it sounds like this person does. And a lot of my play is usually based around my main, and I enjoy progressing things on my main more than I do alts. And I'm finding in Shadowlands that I'm keeping my alts up to date as much as I want to, really, really easily, and that means keeping them up to date with the Covenant campaign and Renown, and it means I have to do a couple of dungeons a week on them to do the dungeon quests to get my Anima rewards, so I can unlock that bit of Renown. The other bit of Renown is literally going into Torghast and rescuing 5 souls from the Maw, which takes 10 minutes, if that, 5 minutes on my Druid, and that's it. That's all I have to do. And I'm gradually obviously my Anima collection in general is much, much slower on those, so I'm not as up to date with my Covenant upgrades on those characters. But when it comes to my main, I always want to log in, and I feel like I've always got something to do on my main, and I feel like there's always progress to be made on my main, whether that be literally just stocking up my Anima reserves, which always feel like they should be a bit higher, or getting more rep in the Maw and with Venari. So still really important bits of that I haven't unlocked, which are sitting there. The quest is ready for me to unlock it, to go into the Beast Warrens and things like that, which I just haven't got around to yet. Whether it be doing Torghast every week and doing new layers of that, whether it be filling out slots in the Great Vault, which I think is genius and wonderful, and I think is this expansion's Mythic Plus. How Mythic Plus, when it arrived in Legion, was that thing that you went, God, yes, absolutely. Why did it take us so long to think of this? This is amazing. I think the Great Vault is the Shadowlands version of that. I think it's one of those things which is just so great and just encourages me to play in all different ways and stuff, and I think it's fantastic. So yeah, I find the rewarding elements that it gives to my main character play are worth any of the things we're describing about alts. Simply because it's so easy to keep alts up to date.
Yeah, I agree. It's a difficult balancing act, right? This is a game where some people are going to have alts in, but I think I wouldn't be surprised to learn that the majority of players tend to focus on one character, and you need to have that balancing act, because I think since Legion forward with artifact power and war resources and everything from starting with Legion until now, I think it's been kind of difficult to balance that, where you were leveling up your artifact weapon, you were leveling up your Heart of Azeroth, and now we're leveling up our Covenant Sanctum. I don't think the previous 2 expansions found a good balance for alt friendliness, but I do think Shadowlands has, in my opinion. Of the 3 that have had systems that are Covenant adjacent, I think Shadowlands does it the best in terms of making me want to actually engage with my alts. I don't personally have any other max level tunes right now. I just have my warrior. I'm slowly working on the Death Knight, but I do have a great sense of FOMO. I'll tell you that much. I want to see the other Covenant Sanctums really bad.
And I think that's
but
a good
I didn't
thing.
listen to your warnings, Taliesin, and I did Threads of Fate, and holy shit, if there's been a more inefficient leveling experience, I can't remember it.
I know, it's not great, is it? But, there'll come a time when you're on your 6th alt or whatever, you'll be very glad of Threads of Fate. But at the moment when the storyline and doing the same storyline again for the leveling is still fun, yeah, you don't need it. But it's one of those things that's going to come into its own a little bit later in the expansion, I think, Threads of Fate. And then we'll all...
I think it's going to come into its own when they actually fix it and make it fun to interface with.
It's not so bad, It's
a little prickly. I think it is, actually. Because you warned me, and I think it's worse than my worst fears. It's really slow. It is really inefficient. It's like all of my concerns and what I would consider minor gripes about how difficult it is to kind of traverse some of the various zones. What if that was a direct hindrance of how quickly you level up?
Oh, I forgot that you really hate moving around zones. Yeah, I forgot actually.
It depends on the zone. It depends on the zone. It's really just Revendreth for me. Revendreth drives me up a wall while literally making me drive up a wall.
Okay, so the thing about Threads of Fate is that it is back-ended. in terms of the efficiency. Okay, so like you're doing Threads of Fate and it feels very, very slow, but the thing is you are filling up those bars for your 4 covenants the whole way through. Like the first thing you need to do when you start Threads of Fate is fly into each zone, so you start that bar quest, so therefore any dungeon you go into is helping you fill up that bar. And obviously those bars, you're not going to start filling them up until you're at like level 56 or something like that. But as soon as they start getting full up, and bear in mind, every one that you fill up and then hand in gives you 1 renown as well. So by the time you actually get to max level and you're ready to start the max level campaign, you've already got 4 renown, which is a massive time saver as well. So don't forget that, as well as all the Anima that you've collected on the way doing world quests and things like that. So the efficiency is there in Threads of Fate, but it's at the back end of the leveling, where so it feels much less efficient. You know, it's the opposite of front.
I wasn't aware of this.
It all hits at once, sort of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it's been what I thought was going to be my first alt. I Threads of Fated it, and the opening of it's just kept me away from it because I just feel like I'm
exactly the same. I had a character
fast.
doing Threads who was stuck at level 54 for weeks, and I didn't want to touch him because I was like, But then I actually kind of bit the bullet and got back in there, and the second half of leveling was much, much easier. Because I think it kind of snowballs a bit towards the end.
Okay, I think that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, whether that's just rather fascinating that it's kind of this front-loaded feels bad.
Yeah.
Then, which is when you usually don't want things to feel bad.
Totally.
But yeah, it's an interesting thought. Califax wrote in with a very, very, very simple question. Short question, maybe not a simple answer. Califax wants to know what we think makes a good raid.
Gosh. Okay, let's hear it. You've been raiding for longer than me. What do you think?
I think it's a balance between like legitimately good mechanics, like that are interesting and somewhat unique. The whole thing is a balance. You want mechanics that are unique and interesting, not instantly masterable so that you just kind of face roll your first try, because you need to fail a certain amount of times for it to become memorable, but you also need to balance like the actual kind of game mechanics of the boss fights and the raid as a whole to the theming and the lore that surrounds it. And it's part of why I really like Castle Nathria, because there's some truly great mechanics. And there does kind of seem to be this really even crescendo starting from the first boss all the way through to the last, where it's like, oh, this is getting a little more involved. And, you know, you go from kind of single boss fights to this crazy ballroom dance mechanic that I love to pieces.
It's so great.
And then the Sire Denathrius fight. Sire Denathrius, this whole fight, like, I think really kind of embodies this entire balance really well, because the mechanics there's some really crazy mechanics in there that you have to adhere to. You have to learn them or you're going to die of death horribly. And they're also just wrapped in this loving lore bow. It's so well themed. The fact that you're dodging these magical swords that cut through the freaking ground that you stand upon is amazing. I'm not going to forget this fight anytime soon.
Yeah. I agree, and I think Castle Nathria is a great example of something that makes of elements that make a very good raid, for sure. And I think a good example maybe is to compare it to Uldir, which I didn't think succeeded quite as well, but is quite comparable because it again is the first raid of an expansion. Again, means a lot more kind of thematically and narrative wise to one set of players over another set of players. So Horde characters going into Uldir, they'd been primed in all of the lore regarding Uldir. They'd had like huge cutscenes showing Rastakhan and like the release of like void monsters and stuff in Zandalar and stuff to help set up the Uldir raid. They'd had like all the storyline involving the blood trolls in Nazmir to help set up the raid. So you know that kind of was a continuation of all that storyline. Alliance players had no clue what was going on. They just got sent there and they were like, in you go, kill these bad things. There's an old god or something. He's not really an old god, but I mean he kind of is, but whatever, just kill it. Yeah, it's an ugly bug thing, kill it. Yuck. And so there was a disconnect there, which could be the case with Carstanathria. Obviously, if you're of the Revendreth Covenant, you're a lot more connected to the story of what's going on in Carstanathria than if you aren't. It's not quite as bad as the Horde Alliance difference in Uldir, but it's there. But there's just something about Carstanathria and the way it is a singular, very focused vision in a way that Uldir didn't. And I think the boss fights are a lot more fun in Carstanathria. Everything's much more of a piece. I think there's a very clear narrative throughout the raid, like you say. And this is something that they've been doing incredibly well since, in particular, Legion. I think Legion really nailed the storytelling within the raid. I think the Nighthold was an amazing example of storytelling in raid. I thought it was fantastic in the way that we kind of built up to that fight there. And same with Tomb of Sargeras and Taurus as well. I felt like all of those raids excelled at telling their story as you progressed through it. And I think that's an incredibly important part of a raid. Because, yeah, it might not affect how fun the boss fights are, but it is part of the overall experience. And it always helps if you know why you're killing the things that you're killing, right? Even if it is some big scorpion in the sewers. It's nice to have some explanation as to why you're doing that. And a character telling you why you need to kill that thing just before you do it is basically all it takes. And it's amazing how that hasn't existed in loads of raids before. And Taurus was an amazing example because it wasn't the best raid of the expansion in my point of view, from my opinion, but it was such like a dramatic ending to the expansion. And the whole of Taurus generally was, the whole of Argus generally was, that it did a lot of heavy lifting. The whole premise of the raid and the whole concept of it and how important it clearly was from a lore perspective, and then the fact that you just got the Titans in there at the end and stuff as well. The lore of that raid did a lot of heavy lifting, which the boss fights maybe didn't quite match, but I still look back on that raid incredibly fondly because it was so lore heavy and so important to the story. So it's various different things that can make it. I think still the best example you can get of a modern WoW raid, in my opinion, is Dazar'alor. I think that place is exquisite and wonderful and had everything. It had storyline. It had 2 cinematics in it, like proper rendered cinematics, like throughout it. It had some of the best raid fights, I think, ever. I think Mechatalk is still one of the greatest raid fights. And, you know, from the point of view of someone who plays in not a casual guild, but not a world first cutting edge guild, like someone who is more representative of the player base as a whole, I think that what Mechatalk did for guilds, i.e. it was like, you have to have everyone on voice chat or you're not doing this. Like, you're not going to beat this boss unless everyone's on voice chat. Even if they're just listening, they have to be there or you're not going to do it. And I think that was fascinating and important, and it felt like an event in our guild that, you know, everyone... I heard people's voices in that raid fight that I'd been raiding with for years and never heard their voices before. And that felt awesome, and it felt like this big achievement when you got that boss down. Kil'jaeden was another great example of that. It was a wall at heroic level to heroic level guilds. It was the only boss that we've ever spent like 150 pulls on at heroic level, which is a bit embarrassing to admit, but, you know, it felt great. It felt really, really good. And I know for guilds who wanted to be farming that on heroic every single week for their mythic progress, that is a pain in the ass. But for most players, that kind of wall is really satisfying and really fun. So it's the lore behind a raid and the way it's presented is really important. The boss fights themselves are really important. And the general theme and music and how like playful and fun everything is important as well. And any one of those things can carry a raid and make it a good raid. And I think you can pick out different examples of raids that have one of those things done really well, and therefore it was a good raid. And you can pick out raids that didn't have any of those things and therefore were bad raids, or less satisfying raids. But those ones that had all of it, like Dazar'alor, like Nighthold, in my opinion, those are great raids, like all-time classic raids. And I would say that Castle Nathria has the atmosphere and the playfulness about it, and the kind of the singularity of vision. And I think it's got the boss fights as well. So the thing it lacks is like the huge important lore and storytelling. It's got a nice story that it tells within itself, but it's a very isolated story. So like it's ticking two of the boxes that make a great raid, which makes it an excellent
the more you
raid,
talk about it, the more Nathria gives me Nighthold vibes, because Nighthold felt very much that way. It was like very much like one type of sort of like culture, like with race. We're dealing with the Venthyr, and just very contained. Like it kind of tells it tells its own story, or in this case, it's kind of it's the end of its own story. This is kind of the closing of a chapter of like. Whereas
like Nathria feels like it's the beginning and closing of a chapter, whereas Nighthold, it was 8.2, so. Or 8.15, wasn't it? So yeah, you had you'd had an entire patch and a half of going through Suramar and stuff like that. So it had been you'd been spending that much more time in Suramar to build up to that raid. And also, don't forget, it had like Gul'dan at the end as well, which was huge, and Illidan at the end. Like Illidan appeared at the end of that raid.
It's so was easy to forget that is
so
at the end of Nighthold.
Yeah, it was the close. It was a really big closing of a chapter of the story, but it wasn't its own opening as well, because that had happened at the beginning of the expansion. You'd had like that much more time in Suramar and the Nighthold than you'd had in Revendreth, for example.
I can
before.
almost see you breaking out into sweats thinking about how long you spent in Suramar.
No, I loved it. Loved every moment of it. I still think, yeah, but you know me, I'm a huge fan of like max level story content just for the sake of it. And Suramar, like in my time playing WoW, there'd never been anything like that. The idea that you do your leveling, and then you get to max level, and then it's like, oh, now this story starts, and there's loads of it. Well done. There's like as much story here as there was in leveling. And for me, I
don't know
wonderful.
Why the Covenant campaign and that's max level questing is landing on me so much better than Suramar. I got real burnt out on Suramar real quick. But I'm liking the breadcrumb trail of Covenant quests every week.
Do you think it's the time gating that does it? Do you think it's the enforced, like you can't just do it all in one go, so don't even try?
Well, I mean, that was everyone's complaining about Suramar, right? It was like the time gating, but I guess
it was time gating, but it was only time gating because like you just couldn't get to that reputation until a certain amount of time. But you still had to be working towards it. Whereas
that's fair.
With Covenant stuff, it's like you do it and you're done. You don't have to be working on it in between. Whereas Suramar was like a mix of like it was gated, but you still had to be doing it. you had to be playing it and working on it, but you still wouldn't get there.
I think that's exactly what it was. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. Which is funny because I'm probably staying in touch with World Quests the most I ever have. I tend to. I've already burnt out. I'm like, I don't care, whatever. But because it's like, well, I need to check in every week anyway and do my quest to keep my renown up, and it's just like, I do like this place. I kind of want to pimp it out. I should probably get some anima and upgrade some things. Like it's because it's not required. I feel that it's on me. It's not the game saying you must do this or you are behind and your podcast listeners will make fun of you. It's going, hey, if you'd like the game to be a little more convenient, like, dude, I'm so close to getting level 3 Mushroom Network. I'm going to be able to shroom over to Oribos. I can't wait. If it was required, I probably would have like burned out a while ago and just been like, I guess I'm just not going to keep up with renown. This game can eat it. Like, but because it's not required, I don't know. It feels like the ball's back in my court and I can.
But also because renown is so remarkably easy to catch up with as well. Like you're talking, you kill a world boss and you've got a renown if you're in a situation where you're needing to catch up, and like you kill a mythic dungeon and you're going to get a renown probably. It's like very easy to catch up if needs.
Just
be.
no anima from your calling chest. That's it. That's the only thing you have to remember.
That's all I want. I want anima from my calling chest. That's what I need in my life right now. I need anima in my calling chest. That's what I need. And a weapon.
I would like that too, because then I would have enough to get level 3 Mushroom Network and be able to shroom over to Oribos. Please and thank you.
Please
Yeah.
give us Anima from Callings. That's all I want. I'm not gonna be like I'm not gonna be like Flex on Twitter, like just slagging everything off about the expansion, asking for this and that. I like the expansion. I think it's better. I think it's better at this stage, the expansion, than Legion, honestly. I think this opening patch of the expansion is the best opening patch of an expansion that I've had. I think it's wonderful. I think this game is brilliant. I'm so proud of it. I try not to say it much because it makes me sound like a shill, but like I think it's like an exquisite game, Shadowlands, in this first patch. And I just want Anima in my calling chest, please. That's all I want.
I would like them to fix the area of the Maw you haven't unlocked yet because it's still buggy and unplayable.
Oh, is it? Oh, is that why you chuckled when I mentioned it? Am I doing the right thing by not?
That's why I chuckled.
Not going into it.
Yeah, you get a quest called The Hunt, and I've had that quest for 2 weeks. I literally cannot complete it.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah,
because
it's bugged.
I've got to say, right, every time I go into Torghast, I have an adventure, and it feels great. And I don't grind the Maw, I should say, not Torghast. I don't grind the Maw. I don't like make it part of my routine. It's where I go when I've got nothing else to do on my main. I'm like, well, I guess I should go to the Maw, and I guess I should like get my rep up with Venari as much. So it's not something I'm bothering with in a way that people who are like, gotta get those sockets on our gear. Like, obviously they are farming those things in a way that I'm not. So our experiences are very different. But every time I go there and I give it some time, I have an adventure and it's really fun. Like, I went to like the big hold thing, which is full of like really badass baddies that you really want to be in a little group to go in, really, to be able to go through it. Or at the very least, you want to be standing alongside other people killing things. You know, you don't really want to be there by yourself. And we had like a proper adventure. It was really, really good. And we like found some quests while I was there, and I did those while I was there, which weren't on the map at first, and then they just appeared while I was there, and I was like, this is awesome. And I killed like a couple of elites and things, and teamed up with some druid who then gave me a lift out on him, which was excellent. And it was like, every time I go in there, I get involved in what's going on, and it's fun. And it's absolute miserableness to traverse and fight through is what makes it fun for me. It just works. Like, there's loads of zones where I can run around doing whatever I want and it's easy. And the Maw is not that. And I think that's fine. It's cool to have a zone like that, and it's fun. I know loads of people disagree with me, but I guess I take it on its own terms, and I just enjoy what's there. And I'm surprised by how much fun I have in the Maw. And I guess it's because I go there sparingly. And I remember the times that I go there because the things I end up doing are not what I expect to do a lot of the time. And it's great. Really enjoy it. It's cool.
I'm reaching that burnout point with the Maw. But apparently I can, if I didn't suck at twisting corridors, I could unlock a mountain. I think that would help a lot.
Oh, it is twisting corridors you get that, is it? I see. Well, for me,
it's part of it.
Yeah. I'm sure I will get burned out on the Maw as well. But for me, like, I feel like every time I go in there and give it some time, I make progress. You know, I've either unlocked a new little bit, or I've saved up enough Stygia to like open a new kind of teleportation thing, or like unlocked another kind of portal with Venari or something like that. So I feel like the time that I put into it is rewarded. Into the Maw.
I agree. I think it's kind of the opposite of the conversation we had about Threads of Fate. I think the rewarding feeling of the Maw is actually rather front loaded and peters out. Because like I feel like you should get more portals more quickly, and to me, I kind of got the feeling like, boy, I feel like I know you can now go get a mount, but it's still somewhat difficult to actually attain it. It's you're gonna need decent gear and some successful runs in Twisting Corridor. I don't know. Like, clearly, I think I'm more prone to burnout than you is definitely the trend I've been noticing when we talk about like how are you feeling about this, how you feeling about that in World of Warcraft. But like, I don't know. I would have liked him out like 2 weeks ago. would have been nice. I feel I've put a lot of time into the Maw, and it still takes me longer than I would like to kind of get around and do things. But yeah, it's just kind of that thought. I'm starting to get unburnt out with Torghast. It still takes longer than I would like, but as my gear gets better, the easier Torghast is becoming. So there's like a little twinkle of Torghast not feeling as grindy I see the light at the end of the 6 floors.
Well, I spent the last week busily unlocking all the layers of Torghast on my protection paladin. And that was
Isn't it wonderful?
really good fun. That's a whole different game. That is a whole different game. From doing on my Shadow Priest, like a whole different game. Just going in there like, wow, this is fun.
Have you tried soloing as a Shadow Priest? Because my friend was doing it and was just it was getting whispered from me. He's just complaining about Torghast. I'm like, you just literally play any other spec. What are you doing?
Yeah, I just switched
to
disc.
A lot better
it's
for
easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fine, but like disc can be a bit frustrating in terms of killing things, and prop paladin is not at all. You just like it's a ball. It's an absolute blast. And I managed to do layer 8 at I think 170 item level, and it was a challenge. Like I had to work, I had to try, I had to switch on my brain, but it was more than doable. And it was like, yeah, awesome. If I can do it, like, basically anyone could. So I was like, yeah, this is great fun.
That's my experience on a prop warrior. I've really enjoyed my time kind of gearing up the prop warrior, and I have 2 legendaries as a result, because I'm not raiding as prot, I'm raiding as arms. But it's been a lot of fun, and you're right. The only one, what was last week's? Was Soul Forges? What's the one where you're constantly taking fire
Upper
damage?
Reaches was last week.
What was that?
Upper Reaches.
Upper Reaches.
The hardest
okay,
one,
that one.
Yeah.
That one owned me, and I had to go down to a layer 7 to solo it.
Gutted.
Although I guess
it's the opening 2 floors of Upper Reaches which are the hardest.
I guess
they kick your ass.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I made it to the 4th floor though, and I still couldn't finish on the protection.
Well, I found Upper Reaches easier actually than Soul Forges, because as been pointed out in the chat just now, Soul Forges is the one where you get constant ticking damage. And by like floor 8, you're getting 10% every 5 seconds of your health taken away. Which if you don't have heals on your class,
does EU and NA have different corridors?
Maybe. I probably not though. I wouldn't have thought.
That
ticking damage is horrible.
Well, I guess there's two wings every week, right? But I did Soul Forge. I could have sworn I did Soul Forges last week, because that was the ticking damage. It's the first time I had ever run it, and it absolutely destroyed me.
Soul Forges and Upper Reaches was last week, and Soul Forges had the ticking damage.
Okay,
Upper Reaches has like the enemies just get more powerful or something.
I guess you have more access to self-healing abilities as a protection paladin than a protection warrior too. So that would make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and I made the mistake, right? Because it's a percentage of your health that gets taken away. So I stupidly, and I realized as soon as I'd done it, I took Anima power that gave me more health. And it's like, increase your health by 10%. I was like, boom, take it. That'll deal with this ticking damage. I was like, no, the ticking damage is exactly the same, but now my healing is less effective.
Yeah, it's completely irrelevant.
It's like, give me something that takes away my health. Like, seriously.
It does help, obviously, in the fights, though, because unless you're getting hit by enemies that do percent-based attacks, then
but the ticking damage is bigger than any of that. So it's like...
Oh, I'm aware.
It's a bigger deal.
It still is a net positive, though, because at least in fights, you're taking less damage than you would have.
It's much harder to stay on top of it, because, like... Yeah, the heals you've got are just making no difference, basically, to this constant tick that you're doing. So you're mitigating the damage that enemies are doing just fine, but that's not the thing that's actually getting you. It's this constant tick. And so taking things that give you more health is probably not a great idea. And it wasn't until I got the Anima power that made my steward, my little Swolkin slave, heal me if I asked him to, because that's a percentage thing. And then finally it was able to kind of like nullify that a little bit. But yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. All right. Final question from Twitter. Larisian WoW said, now that Shadowlands has been out for a bit, what has been your favorite thing that you found while questing? Not necessarily big story moments, but little things. And for Larisian, Larisian says, for me, the little animated quill in Revendreth was amazing. Sent me on a quest to get its magic ink back.
For me, the best thing about the entire expansion is the Dredgers. I love them so much. I can't even really explain my love for the Dredgers. Whoever's writing the Dredgers' voice lines is a genius and deserves a knighthood and should probably get given Ian's job. Like, they're so wonderful, and every single exchange I have with them just makes me happy. Every single exchange. And like even doing my Kyrian Covenant campaign, because I like my main is in Revendreth, okay, so I spend a lot of time with the Dredgers, and like every now and then you get some stupid world quest or something where you have to like throw Dredgers at something to make it work, and that's always super fun, and they're just great, and you know they just got these really cheeky lines. And the thing that really put the nail on it as them being my favorite thing for the expansion is when I was doing my Kyrian Covenant campaign, and there's a bit where you go to Revendreth and you have to like take care of Pelagos, who's the most useless character in the entire world. I love him, but he's rubbish at everything. He's terrible. Every time, he never does anything right. He's just terrible. And he disappears for a bit in Revendreth, and then you find him, and he's just being followed by these two Dredgers. And he can't shake them, and he's just made friends. Like, these Dredgers have just befriended him and won't stop following him. And then he's like, guys, I've got to go and do this thing. And as he leaves, the Dredgers are like, oh, where do you think you're going, Blue? Are you trying to shake us off? And just the fact that they just call him Blue, and they just decided to make friends with this blue guy, and he's called Blue, and they're just going to hang around him. I don't know why. I just love the Dredgers. I just think they're the best thing in the entire expansion. They're fantastic. And if I could race change to a Dredger, I would. Simple as that.
I think the first like tiny detail that just brought me pure unadulterated joy was the walking around hands in Maldraxxus. Just a little, instead of squirrels, there's just hands that walk around like, what is it, Thing from the Addams Family?
Yeah.
I was ecstatic about that. But with you mentioning the Dredges, which probably honestly are also my answer, but I'm trying to find something different, is just the small, hilarious side race that every zone had. Every zone had a small, hilarious side race. You know, in Bastion, it was the Swolken. In freaking Ardnweald, we had all of the blue like little critter spirits like Chufa just like I know you at home, you listeners at home, you know by now. Oh, I love just basking in the ridiculous over the top emo melodrama and goth aesthetics of the fantasy of World of Warcraft, but I also respond very well to adorably cute bullshit. Like, I'm so here for it.
Yeah.
What did Maldraxxus? I don't think Maldraxxus had like a cute.
They got little skeleton things, haven't they? That kind of.
Yeah.
And
they're
slimes.
not as,
I guess it'd be slimes. You'd say.
Oh yeah, you're right. Slimes. That's it. I was so in. Like, I still take out my slime pet because that whole arc was just so. It was so charming. So you're right. Yes, and then obviously the Dredges. Like, they're such fun little flourishes. Because this is a dark expansion. We're dealing with literal. The realm of the dead, and they didn't at no point did it just become kind of overbearingly morose, and they did a good job with it. So like that's just been, it's these fun little flourishes of these of joy and humor in each zone. It really work for me. I think
a really good
balance.
example of that as well, a very obvious example, is the play that you do when you join the Ardnweald Covenant. Reenacting Azeroth history, like a great example of just quest designers having fun, you know.
The second that might be my answer. Ysera's reactions. Ysera reacts should be its own YouTube channel, because I remember I joined that covenant, and first of all, I didn't think I was going to Ardnweald. I thought I was going to be like min-maxing be damned, I'm going Venthyr, you can't stop me. But I didn't. I just ended up really liking that covenant ability and liking the zone, and I was like, you know what, I'm going where leveling has led me to. Like, through my experience leveling, I enjoyed Ardnweald the most, both abilities and aesthetic. That's where I'm going to go. And so I did. And then I joined, and they're like, go do a play. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. I want corsets and vampires. I don't want to do a play. This is so stupid. Why? I've made a huge mistake. And then, like, the second fake Sargeras stabs fake Azeroth, and Ysera goes, oh, no. I'm just like, oh, this is the best thing ever. This is wonderful. So cool.
And like all the reactions from the crowd.
Somebody at a meeting on the WoW team was like, wait, Ysera wouldn't know any of this shit. We have to have her react and gasp, and I love it. I love it so much, and it's simultaneously respecting WoW's lore and like just taking the piss out of it in a way that really works for me.
It was so good, and Yeah, the other reactions from the people in the crowd as well, who are like, "There's a sword in the planet. How does that even work?" Like, it's just asking the questions.
Yep.
It's really cool.
So,
No, I love it.
So good.
And like any expansion, in fairness, Shadowlands is just chock full of those little things. And I really bloody loves it. It's so good. And there's that. There is like. Obviously, I come from a theatre background as well, and there's enough recognisable. It wouldn't be important if there weren't, but there's enough recognisable in the theatre event as someone that's spent a lot of time working in theatres to be really satisfying, kind of above and beyond, just an enjoyable quest. In Shadowlands, it's great. It's really good, and they push the theater thing in other quests and world quests, and I think you go and you do some theater stuff in the Kyrian campaign as well when you go to Ardnweald, and all of that's got some really nice touches that theater kids will recognize and appreciate, and it's just really nice. It's great. I like it when I'm being represented. It's important. Representation is important, and as a white male, I don't get that enough.
Could we
in my
get
video
like
games,
some like bad garage concerts in like Revendreth? That would really speak to me. That would really, really speak to me. I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good place to kind of tie a bow on this episode. So thank you everybody who wrote in, who tweeted at us. Keep them coming. wowkillercast@gmail.com. That's where you can write in, be a part of the show. I do my best to stay on top of that inbox and pull out questions, and I usually start staging the next listener question episode immediately following us burning a ton of emails. So keep them coming. wowkillercast@gmail.com. You can tweet the show at wowkillercast. You want to check us out on YouTube? Go to youtube.com/wowkiller. That's where you can find that. But Taliesin, if folks are somehow unaware of all of the other fine Warcraft content that you're generating out there, where can everyone find you?
You can find us on YouTube or at Taliesin and Evitel Do Games, where we make videos about World of Warcraft. You can find us on Twitch, Taliesin and Evitel, and if you're watching this recording live, then you already know how to find that. And you can find us on Twitter for sassy hot takes. Taliesin and Evitel. No and, but there is an and.
I do like sassy hot takes. It's wonderful.
Do you like them? Do you like them?
You should change
Should I
the name of
introduce
your
something
channel.
to this show?
Sassy hot takes?
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain we've had some sassy hot takes on this show.
What about you, Garrett? Because I can never find you when you're not here. You come here for the show, and you're here, but I can never find you outside of the show. Where could I do that?
That's because I'm on the NA server. Come on, Taliesin, get with the program. I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. You can follow me on there. There's 2 R's and 2 T's in Garrett. Someone today spelled Garrett with 1 T, and I almost omitted your email.
I banned him from the chat.
How dare you? How dare you? That and double spacing. Those are the killers for me. No, of course not. You can follow me on there. This podcast and every single other one that I produce can be found at amove.tv. That is AMOVE.tv. It's a StarCraft reference for attack moving, because that's where I started podcasting.
Nice.
Every once in a while,
I didn't
I'll throw
actually
that
know
in.
that. That's fascinating.
I throw that into a podcast maybe once or twice a year, and I'll get like 3 tweets that are just like, "Oh my god, I see it now." This is my first podcast. I did a StarCraft 2 show for years.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I say
so
awesome.
go,
I have no interest in a StarCraft 2 podcast. I'm basically just being polite. Yeah, awesome, cool. Yeah.
It's the reason I didn't like Warcraft 3 Reforged. StarCraft 2 just controls so much better.
Fair. Very fair.
It ruined revisiting Warcraft 3 for me. That's it. Anyways,
that's what
AMove.tv.
ruined it. That's definitely what ruined Warcraft 3 Reforged. Absolutely, was just that's what it was.
It was a really well polished empty product.
Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Yes.
You thought it was polished? Well,
it looks nice. It looks
great in screenshots,
nice.
Except I don't think it even does. I was never on board with the model redesigns in Warcraft 3 Reforged.
The monsters look great. Arthas looks like a Korean MMO knockoff version of Arthas.
Yeah,
he's like too Ken doll pretty.
Yeah,
just little weird, little strange.
Let's not
Anyways,
get started on that, though, eh? If you
yeah,
want to hear more
let's
about our
not.
opinions of Warcraft 3 Reforged, write it in a question for the next mailbag. Maybe we'll get to it.
Or maybe we'll discuss it in a pre-show. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of WoW Killer. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. If you want to support the show, the best way you can do it is download it every week. Subscribe on whatever it is, whatever podcatcher you're using. Download the MP3 every week. It helps our ratings. That's how you can support the show. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And until next time, good luck and have fun.